Weather Wagers. Brett and Dan along with you here on this Tuesday before Christmas. And yes, we've recorded on Tuesdays the past few weeks thanks to some scheduling issues, but that hasn't stopped us from picking these games and trying to nail down the forecast. We're going to get into all of that in just a bit, so we say happy Christmas week. And boy, it is. Are you ready for Christmas?
I actually feel pretty ready. I don't know what it is with this year, and I don't know if it's because it falls on a weekend, but I feel like there's time.
Yeah.
I'm almost a little itchy because, I'm like, do I have everything wrapped? Yeah. Do I have gifts ready?
Do you have everything wrapped? I don't.
I don't have all of my gifts to my wife wrapped, but she wrapped everything else this weekend. So
good for her. So you're done.
I'm not sure what we're exactly fill our wrapping time with that we normally have leading up to it, but it won't be done last minute. So I guess that's nice.
Let me ask you a question. I posed this earlier to a good friend of ours here in the newsroom, but these mall Santas that they have this time of year, if you can find a mall that's left. But this is not to insult the real Santa Claus, by the way, but they have the mall Santas. Would you sign up to be a mall Santa?
I would not.
Okay, well, let me put some restrictions on it though. $25,000 for 1 hour, and you sit there and you take whatever. Now, kid could pee on you.
I was gonna say
puke on you. But you'd have to sit there the entire hour.
$25,000.
Yeah,
for an hour. Now,
no matter what happens in that hour,
it would be my suit. That would be my other stipulation. It would be my suit because you don't know where the Santa suit has come from.
You could buy a fresh suit. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think I could do that.
Okay, because but I mean, if something happens,
is that the going rate? Do you know something I don't know?
No, it's not the going rate. I'm just somebody like you or me or the friend that I posed this to, I didn't think that we would do it, but I would do it for $25,000 for an hour, no matter what happens to me.
Now, would you do it for $25 an hour?
No, I don't think so. I'm not made like that. But anyway, okay.
That almost sounds like a side wager, but we'd have to find a mall that would accept one of us.
Correct. We'll get into some Christmas stuff a little bit later, but we do have a bet to pay off. And last week,
we do.
I did hear some reaction. The episode we did last week was it was touching in many ways because it was remembering Mike Leach, and although we didn't certainly know him personally, everybody
felt
like they did
right,
because this was a guy that cared about people. He was not a coach that liked to hear. Well, I was going to say he maybe did like to hear himself talk, but he didn't always talk about football like you said. And he just remembered people. He remembered little details, and that goes a long way.
Well, and I was going to say, too, the connections that he had. I mean, even going to the Eagles, I didn't know this part of the story. So Reuben Frank, I listened to his podcast with Dave Zangaro every week, and the story he shared was that Mike Leach was friends with Marty Morningway, a former offensive coordinator under Andy Reid, and between jobs, Mike Leach... so between the Texas Tech debacle and going to Washington State, he came and learned Andy Reid's offense.
Yeah.
So, as much as you and I appreciate Andy Reid, he had an influence on Mike Leach. And even though Mike Leach only had a small play card full of plays, he used some of those concepts.
It's
just
amazing.
So weird how these things work.
Everything is kind of, these family trees have many different branches, but sometimes they're all connected. So anyway, we made a wager on the 49ers Seahawks game, and for the record,
and we'll get into our records here momentarily.
Yeah. So I said, what was the wager?
Well, the wager was simply who would win 49ers Seahawks. I thought the Seahawks would, in a must-win situation, rise to the occasion. I thought between Geno Smith having a comeback year, Kenneth Walker was going to play.
Right.
I really thought the 49ers were going to go up to Seattle and lose, and it was anything but. I feel like the Seahawks didn't show up. So, as a result...
Yeah, they covered, and San Francisco covered us 21-13. Yeah, I wanted to find the final score, and that is, again, Brock Purdy.
Right, the Brock Purdy show, leading the Shanahan offense.
I said a while ago, I'm kind of done with Pete. And that just kind of proved it. So, in honor of Mike Leach, the pirate, we said that you had the loser, the bet had to dress like a pirate. So, you're going to get your stuff on here.
Yep,
so
we're going to put on the...
This was authentic pirate gear. And I have to tell you, Mike Leach would be proud, I think, right?
Well, his famous book is Swing Your Sword.
Yeah.
I don't have a sword today.
No, but you have just about everything else. So I like it. And if you can't see, if you're listening to this, let me just tell you, you can go to the ABC 27 YouTube page. Check it out. The man has never looked better. And he even has a little ice scope to try to, maybe you're observing the weather from that Pirate
out of
ship.
the crow's nest.
And you know the other thing about Leach
Let me
is
get
the
my
reason
headset
he
back on.
the reason he liked Pirates. Yeah, but I'm going to put
Yep.
you put that on top.
I'm going to put it on top.
The reason he liked Pirates is he was so
don't know if it's gonna
fascinated with
stay.
history. Can it stay on there? Do your best.
I'm going to try. Here
There
we
you
go.
go. Okay.
I probably look totally
You're going
ridiculous.
to take a lot of balance.
Yeah,
here
but that's
for Dan.
that's the point.
Thank you, Mr. Shiner, for our outfit today.
Hey, authentic from the Cayman Islands.
That's right.
Where
There
you
real
go.
pirates come from.
And
The gold doubloons.
Mike Leach would have been proud, I think, that we honored him in this way. So there you go. As you try to look for
I'm
maybe
looking
some,
at my play sheet, the air raid offense.
yeah, and you got to try to find some winners this week. Let's review last week. We just talked about the Seahawks and the 49ers game, and I want to point out a couple of things here on our list. First of all, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast. And
right.
again, go to the YouTube page, ABC 27 News, search Weather Wagers. We have our own playlist on there. It's easy to find us, and you can actually see these stunts like this. And send us your ideas, weatherwagers@gmail.com. We will check that, and of course, we want to hear from you if you have any ideas about some side wagers.
Love to hear from everybody.
Yep, it's great stuff. So right now, last week, not great. I tanked after having a couple of good weeks. I got to tell you, you and I differed on the UTSA Troy game. It ended up being a low-scoring, pretty good game.
I'm not sure what happened. I mean, both teams I thought would come in and score at least a little bit, especially on the Roadrunner side of things. But what did I tell you about Troy's defense, my friend?
You were right about that. They kind of shut them down, and Troy gets
The numbers
victory.
don't lie.
Nope, Louisville and Cincinnati, the Scott Satterfield Bowl. Louisville destroyed them, and
They did.
I think that was more Cincinnati had really no motivation to be there. We did get the Marshall Bowl, and they took
Charles
it to
Huff?
Yeah, they took it to Connecticut. I think they won by 14 points, so they covered there. We just touched on the
I'm wearing
49ers
this.
Seahawks game. Mr. Pirate over there. Now, you wanted to make a comment about the Bills game. Please do.
Well, so, last week on Weather Wagers, we talked about the cold and the wind blowing in from the Great Lakes. And while it took part of the game, you mentioned how well the field was cleaned up in Buffalo and at Orchard Park. It didn't seem like there was going to be a huge weather factor with the snow. It was windy and cold. Don't get
I
me
was
wrong.
worried about that because, I tuned in at the start and I thought, oh, no, we promised everybody a snow game. Where was it? Then they showed the time lapse of first of all, credit to those staff.
Right.
They got that stadium cleaned up, but then I fell asleep, and what happened?
Well, when you fell asleep, the fourth quarter was a lot of fun. The game was tight toward the end,
Yep.
and the snow was coming down hard, and I was impressed how fast it was accumulating.
Right.
I mean, that was the thing. Not that it was the Snow Bowl, the LaShawn McCoy game in Philadelphia, but that band really came in hard and fast, and it changed the conditions quickly for the game.
Yeah, and that's why we both got that wrong because Buffalo did not cover.
They did not cover.
And I will say that line at the beginning of the game, they made mention of it on the broadcast. I did see that, but it was sitting maybe about 10 miles to the north.
Yes,
And,
and
then
then
it
it
just shifted
sank.
down to because Buffalo City was getting it. Orchard Park, of course, just a little bit farther to the south. So a fun game,
Well,
and they pulled it out in the end.
And what do you think about this division? I mean, the AFC, I'm starting to get a little bit more nervous about these teams coming out of the AFC.
I would. They all look pretty good in that division too. I mean, I think everybody still has a chance.
Yes.
Some teams it's a low chance. I think I saw the Jets have a 28% chance, but they still have a chance.
At this point in the season for the Jets, that's a win.
Well, yeah, we'll get into talking about them later too because I have a few things to say about the New York Jets. We'll get into that. SMU, what are you doing? Fell apart. BYU.
Mustangs.
I'm disappointed in them.
Lonnie Sataki.
But I think that goes to some of the opt-outs we talked
Yes.
about, and we just didn't. We weren't on the right side of that. You got the Browns.
I like the Browns right now. They seem to be playing better football. And keep in mind, injuries right now are playing a key role in the NFL. So if you stay up on injuries, you understand what's going on. And the weird part about the Browns is watching Deshaun Watson. After everything that's happened, he's back on the field, and they're winning.
Yeah, they are, and the Ravens, of course, down without Lamar.
Right. And
Do
that
we
was
know how
huge.
long that is? Have you heard?
I don't know, but Mr. Huntley did not have a good showing.
No. So keep an eye on that. If you're picking any Ravens games, you've got to factor that in. Good luck picking the NFL.
Well,
I don't even know why
I
we
was
bother.
going to say to you, the Chiefs still scare me heading into the playoffs as an Eagles fan, but
Would you feel good about putting any real money on these games? I wouldn't.
no, but you picked the Chiefs to cover 14 points.
Well, and their case in point.
And the defense was just atrocious.
So you're looking at the board and you're thinking, okay, what can I play? What do I feel good about? Chiefs Texans, easy pick.
Right.
Not at all. Didn't they go to overtime?
They went to overtime.
So
And it
you
took
know,
some miracles.
I just this is why these games are tough this time of year, especially when you talk about bowl games, but you're trying to find in the pros now motivation, especially if these guys know they're in the playoffs.
Correct.
Motivation,
Don't want to get hurt.
injuries, everything else. So I went an abysmal 2-5. You got a winning record. That's all you can ask for.
Hey, I'm scraping by, so now we have a very interesting setup here. The tide has flipped here a little bit.
Yeah, and again, these outcomes are not that bad considering how many games we have
Correct.
picked against the spread. But it is 72 and 74 and 73 and 73 for you, so you inch one ahead. But things are as tight as we can get them for that pie in the face bet at the end of the year. So this is what you want. Though
Do I
you
have
want
to wear a pirate hat if I lose the pie in the face thing?
I don't think so. We won't make you do that. But this is tight.
It's very tight, my friend, and it's only going to get harder here because the last couple of weeks, the one thing about extending the NFL season, the one issue with it is now the games are less relevant as we look ahead. So, this record could be very tight here down the stretch. Just something we need to watch for. I think overall, some teams are going to have a lot of rest here in the next 3 weeks, and you may not know exactly when that's going to hit.
You're right. Sorry, I have a frog in the throat.
No, that's
We're
okay.
trying to get it back. Listen,
We'll bring everybody up here.
bowl season continues, so I'll have you take the lead on this as we march into the Penn State game, too. I look, though, and I'll just say this. There's not a lot of great bowls, so you're not going to see us picking many this week.
No, this week's lineup is a little bit weaker. A lot of those teetering teams, whether it's the UConns of the world we just talked about against Marshall, a lot of 6-6 type of matchups. If you're into waiting for New Year's Day, I think it's going to be a long wait. I think the NFL is just a little bit more interesting right now, even if there was a stat last night. So the game was being played last night, the Commanders and the Giants. And unfortunately,
Sunday night.
Yeah, Sunday night. Yep. There was a stat about how close the games were. And then last night, the Green Bay Packers game, Green Bay won by 12. I didn't even realize this. That was the biggest margin of victory for the entire week in the NFL. So every game's been close.
That's pretty incredible. And a good stat there by your buddy Joe Buck.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to give him too much credit, but Joe Buck had a good little stat there, and I think it was Scott Van Pelt afterwards said that we got to work our way through this mess of figuring out who's in the playoffs. I mean, do you like the extra team involved, Mr. Shiner? I mean, it helped the Eagles last year, but
that's about it. Yeah, it was nice last year because it allowed this team to get that experience. So I think it's beneficial for us moving in this year. However, it's going to be a little crazy coming in here.
It's crazy.
I mean, I think Tampa Bay is going to end up having a winning record when it's all said and done. But, I mean, there's that possibility of a losing record team getting in again. The entire NFC East could possibly make the playoffs, which that obviously was never an option before for four teams, and it hasn't happened yet. So I think that's pretty interesting that one division can make the playoffs, which you'd think at least one team would get left out. But with 7, it's a little bit easier.
The Buccaneers have the Cardinals, the Panthers.
That should be a win.
And the Falcons.
Yeah, Falcons might not.
I mean, Brady should be able to pull all those games out, although he's been looking worse and worse every week. But then they started out hot in that game, and obviously, the Bengals.
We know how that ended.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean. Listen, I like it, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see because, again, much like the baseball playoffs, you just need to be hot. And, the Eagles have to be careful here.
Well, and everything resets, and you could see the huge grin on Aaron Rodgers' face last night because they said, you need to win the next 3, and he's like, yep, and 2 of them are right here in Lambeau Field. So all of a sudden the
one
Packers...
of them is not.
Right.
And that's this week,
yes,
and we're going to get into
Miami.
that. Yeah, Miami. Okay. I agree. Bowl season. I mean, these games are basically to fill time on ESPN, make the sponsors happy. They're fun. And if you're at home and you're wrapping presents or something like that, like we talked about, you maybe need to do some baking. You can put them on in the background.
This week always tends to be a little bit on the weaker side. I mean, there's some games even. We're recording on Tuesday. There's some games tonight. Even this afternoon, I believe, too. There might be a 3:30 game if I looked up the numbers correctly.
Well, let me look it up because I can read the schedule for the rest of the week here. And the reason that I only honed in on one is, when I'm trying to pick games that may be interesting, it's always like, would I actually want to watch this game? And some of these games were pretty brutal. And I love, this podcast, we love college football. I would watch any college football game, but the reality of it is...
Well, you just don't have the natural matchups. When you don't have the conferences in play, when you don't have the rivalries in play, you lose a lot of that nostalgia.
You've got opt-out. So, yes, Tuesday, 3:30, Eastern Michigan, San Jose State.
I don't think I've seen Eastern Michigan play this year. Now, I've seen San Jose State in some of the late matchups.
Hugh Freezeless Liberty taking on Toledo at 7:30. South Alabama, Western Kentucky tomorrow.
Hey, thanks Western Kentucky for Mitchell Tinsley. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, he's good. We'll skip Thursday because we are going to talk about that one. But Friday, Houston, Louisiana Lafayette, Missouri, Wake Forest.
I did see that matchup actually is a little bit intriguing just because Wake Forest underachieved and Missouri kind of rose up to the occasion to become bowl eligible.
I would care more about it if it was during the season.
Correct.
Christmas Eve and the Hawaii Bowl, Middle Tennessee State versus San Diego State.
Nah.
Bowling Green versus New Mexico State Monday. I mean, these games are just brutal. Just brutal.
I do want to pose a question. Obviously, during the bowl season, the last weekend and this weekend, we are getting a full slate of NFL games on Saturday.
I do love that.
Do you like that, or
Yes.
do you think it's taking away from us watching a bowl game on a Saturday?
No, because that Saturday there's only one. It's in prime time. It's Christmas, the Hawaii Bowl. I think they had to do it because of Christmas, and now they have kind of what they did on Thanksgiving. The NFL has a triple header on Christmas, so they're just owning all these windows.
Well, and you know that people are going to watch.
Yeah,
so
because
I'll have it on in the
I'd
background.
love it.
I'll have it on in the
you know,
background. Yeah, 100%. And then of course you put a matchup like the Eagles Cowboys on Christmas Eve. You've got a real winner there. So. Where does that leave us? Let's talk quickly about Penn State headed out to the Rose Bowl. They are getting set to go to Pasadena. Very, I want to say, quiet, and that's a loose term, but there's not much drama around this team right now.
No, but they're roar Lions roar, and
Had to do it.
The last few days, we've seen James Franklin tweet out. So if you're on Twitter, every time there's a commitment to Penn State, he tweets out, "We are better, 107,000 strong."
Yep.
There's been some interesting commitments. They got the top running back out of Georgia, I believe, to commit. They also went ahead and picked up a defensive lineman. So they are.
Picture this guy while he's wearing this.
They still are making moves. It just won't affect this game coming up. And I think the key part is we're not seeing a lot of defections to the NFL. We're not seeing a lot of guys opting out. This team is pretty unified, which I appreciate. And it's Sean Clifford's last hurrah. I feel very confident heading into this game, especially with the Kincaid kid, the tight end for Utah, opting out. I feel like Penn State could go into the Rose Bowl and maybe even win big.
And really use it as a building block into what could be.
I will be disappointed if it's not.
I agree. That's the way I kind of felt when we took on USC in 16. Franklin said he felt the same way. He didn't feel like they capitalized enough on that appearance. So now this is one of the last Rose Bowls that's really going to mean something as the Rose Bowl on its own. So I think you've got to go in there and try to capitalize and really push forward with a lot of these talented guys that are going to come back next year. You've got to do it. So, okay, listen, let's talk about the forecast before we get into the games of the week. Dan, I want to show the map if we can,
let's
please.
go to the big map here.
Okay. Now, we are all talking about this coastal storm. We've got a massive rainstorm coming up the coast on Thursday and Friday. We are, of course, going to talk about some games there. And then behind this, you want to talk about a crazy setup. The NFL has games Saturday, and a lot of them are going to be frigid and windy.
Anywhere east of the Rockies, even the South, is going to be cold.
Florida is going to have some wind chill values that are unheard of down there. I think this is going to be the coldest Christmas Eve and Christmas we've seen in years.
I agree. And again, if you're trying to figure out, matchups, if you're trying to figure out spreads, I mean, just go back to the Eagles-Chicago game. We'll get into a little bit of talk about that coming up. But the chill plays an impact. These athletes don't want to be out in it.
Nope,
It's just a simple
I will
fact.
be honest, I've seen the over-under numbers drop by several points since yesterday, and I am still playing the under quite a bit this week, just a little tease.
Yes.
Because I don't know who's going to win some of these games, so then I want to try to play the game. Let's look at the number. Well,
Some
these
of them are
numbers have
pick-ems.
dropped.
Yes.
Yeah, these numbers have dropped because of the forecast, and the forecast is cold and ugly.
Well, cold, windy,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of snow if you're near
Yeah.
the Great Lakes. And for traveling, I mean, I know people will still come out to the games, but if you're trying to tailgate in some of this stuff,
Ooh, it's going to be ugly.
it's going to be pretty ugly.
Merry Christmas. Okay, let's get into the games of the week.
Games of the week.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's start out here with a little bit of college action here. We have Air Force against Baylor. Now, Baylor was kind of a sneaky team in the Big 12. Air Force is an academy team, obviously, kind of doesn't have the same level of talent as some of these schools. Baylor's favored by 4. I'm actually surprised it's this close. I mean, Air Force can put up numbers and points, so I think it's a question of, can Baylor play just enough defense to outscore them?
It's a great question, but Air Force has a pretty stingy defense too, and I will say this is a virtual home game for Baylor. But given the fact that these are hard to pick, I don't know who's going to win this game.
Well, and you don't know the motivation.
No.
Air Force might be a little more motivated than this. This is taking place almost as a home game for Baylor. Keep that in mind, too.
That's what I said, and I think it's the most interesting. I mean, you heard me read off all the games this week. I think it's the most interesting one. Happens to be Thursday night, 7:30. The over/under is 43.5. I think it's an interesting game. Both teams have a style of play where they want to rush the ball and then stuff the run on the other side. So could it be a low-scoring game? I don't know, but we're going to pick this one. Then the rest of our picks this week happen to be pro games.
And I think this one is interesting because I just mentioned my disappointment in the Seahawks. So Pete Carroll's team taking on our good friend Andy Reid in Arrowhead. Expect temperatures in the single digits leading up to that game and possibly during the game. And the middle of the day is going to help, but it is going to be chilly.
And windy. And ugly. I mean, this game is going to be cold.
And my friends, does Andy Reid like to run the ball?
Well, not really.
No. So this could really be a big wrench into his plans. And then finally, 2 teams here, at least in our first matchup, Saturday, 1 o'clock, Giants and Vikings. I'm going to call this the Pretenders Bowl.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. I think both of these teams are playoff pretenders.
I don't know about that, but I will call it the Jekyll and Hyde Bowl because I don't know if I've ever seen a team that, look at the Vikings. They go out and get destroyed by the Cowboys. Then they come back and they beat the Bills, right? Mm-hmm. And then they play 2 completely different halves against the Colts and stage the largest comeback in the history of the NFL.
But it's the Colts.
I know. I understand that, but Dan, they came back.
I agree.
And then but my point is, what if the first half team shows up?
I know. Well, that's
because
the thing.
Giants are hot and cold too. So I don't know. This game and the Vikings don't need this game.
No, they do not need this game. The Giants do need this game, and let's face it. I think the biggest thing with the Giants is if they don't have Saquon Barkley going early, it's almost game over for them. They cannot throw the ball efficiently.
No, not with Daniel Jones there. He can probably run it better than he can throw it at times.
I think he could too, as long as he doesn't hit that turf monster. Now, other games of note, we have the Bengals, who are playing very good football, mind you, against the Patriots. The Patriots, I don't know how they come back from that loss against the Raiders. One of the wildest and dumbest plays in the NFL I've ever seen. Bill Belichick, I think, probably was contemplating retirement after that play.
Everybody was talking about that play. Can you describe it in case people missed it?
So, for whatever reason, the Patriots got pretty aggressive. Last play of the game, it's a tie game. I guess they didn't want to go to overtime, so they do the old hook and ladder routine.
Pitchy, woo-woo.
Yeah, whatever you want to call that.
That's it.
I'm not sure exactly how this played out, but basically, they gained 10 or 15 yards. The first receiver that caught the ball, the first pitch back was fine. And I'm like, okay, maybe the first guy, that pitches it back, one more pitch, game over, right? No. It's kind of like the cross-court pass in basketball. You just don't do it.
I can't look at you. I'm sorry. You're trying to break down this play, and you're in the pirate hat. I just can't get over it. But anyway.
So, deep pass backwards, all right? Mm-hmm. Deep pass backwards right into the Raiders' lap. And the last hope for the Patriots to shut down this play is Mac Jones, and he whiffs on the tackle.
He didn't just whiff. He got stiff-armed to the ground.
Yes, it was
embarrassing.
It was pitiful. It was very pitiful.
Do you think this is something that Belichick actually called up, or do you think when you get into this thing, once the first pitch happens, it's like all of a sudden, I have to pitch it now, and then I should pitch it now? And
I don't know. I'd like to think that
you're tied.
Yeah,
you're tied.
You're
Why
tied.
would you go for it there?
Good for the Raiders. That was a heads-up play. I'm not sure in that moment I'm focused on intercepting
the ball. But it
never
needed to happen.
It never needed to happen. It could have gone to overtime. And as much as I hate the NFL overtime, you go to overtime in that situation. I mean,
of course,
the Patriots are done, I think, even though they're in the hunt.
Well, I want to take you up on that here a second. Because I'm going to agree with you, but I want to add to it. This game, I mean, what's the name of this podcast?
Weather Wagers.
Okay. So this game, I mean, if weather is not a factor here, then I don't know where it's going to be. Okay, you're talking about an extremely cold Gillette Stadium.
Yes.
This may be one of the coldest venues of the weekend. Now, the Bengals are on a 6-game winning streak. They look good.
They look very good.
But I don't think that given what is happening on the offensive side of the ball, I think the Patriots have a good enough defense.
Okay.
They could stay in this game. But their offense, something's not right. And I said in the column, that's what happens when you let Matt Patricia run things. He's a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's like, Belichick's trying to be a mad scientist here. But, Bill, who am I to criticize you? You've won I haven't won a Super Bowl. You have. But Matt Patricia running the offense, I could have told you was not going to work.
Well, what weapons
and it's not
do they
working.
have? They don't have anything on the outside. They
A
don't.
lot of tight ends.
Yeah,
That's about it.
I don't quite get
Tight
team
ends
building.
can be good, but you've got to use them efficiently.
It
So
shouldn't be 30% of your cap money.
I mean, have we learned?
no, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, Dave. You're right.
Have we learned something about coaches not becoming GMs in football yet?
Yes, Bill O'Brien.
I mean, come on, folks.
Chip Kelly.
And as much as Howie Roseman was getting ripped coming into this year, I mean, he knew how to build a team and build it within the cap structure because it's so important in the NFL. And I kind of feel bad for Mac Jones. I don't think there's much of a chance there.
Well, not right now. I mean, they're going to have to give him a lot of help. All right, more on that game coming up. We'll pick it, but the big game, right? The Eagles, the Cowboys.
This is the big one.
Part 2, Christmas Eve, 4:25. It's got that prime window there.
Yes, it does.
The Cowboys started as a 1-point favorite, now are a 6-point favorite on the heels of the news that Jalen Hurts is not going to play.
Likely not going to play because I will say Nick Sirianni came on WIP this morning, Angelo Cataldi's show, and said, listen, he's rehabbing, he's giving it his all. Do we think it's even smart to think about playing him in this game?
No.
I'll open up to everybody here.
Well,
I
we
wouldn't.
were talking beforehand. I think this is classic Cowboys week banter. It's a smokescreen. Jalen is fine because remember he sprained his shoulder in the game and then threw 3 more dimes
Yes.
afterwards. And I don't know if you guys saw the quote about Jordan Mailata when he went to pick him up, and there were some choice words saying "pick me the f up." I'm playing, and Jordan's like, "Yes, sir," and he walked away. So, as an Eagles homer, obviously, I'm hoping this is all just fodder for everybody to be like, "Oh, we have to prepare for Gardner Minshew." Maybe Jalen sneaks in at the last minute there.
I don't see it.
Short week though, you gotta be a little worried.
I'm telling you, guys, I hate to say this, but I know we're all Eagles fans here, but take off your Eagles glasses. They're losing. Big.
Big. I don't know.
Cowboys run all over them, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's the perfect scenario. The Cowboys know they need it. They're at home. Micah Parsons is going to be a beast. I don't think Hurts plays. The Eagles do not need this game.
They don't, and I think that is a
And
big
you're looking
factor.
at motivation.
Do they, though? I think they have to win this to clinch the number 1 seed and the division.
So they
then
can
you have to
win-
hope the Cowboys lose other games in order to still lock up that number 1 spot. I think it is a game you need to win. Then you can rest everybody.
I think.
Interesting. I mean, you're right. You're right about that.
I think they can win this game with Gardner Minshew.
I don't disagree with you.
I just think it's tough to beat the same team twice in a year.
That part I agree with. That part I
Both
do
the
agree
Cowboys
with.
corners are out, I believe,
Yes.
too. So
And they just
A.J.
lost.
Brown can dominate. Gardner can throw the ball. We know that.
They just lost to the Jaguars, guys.
Yeah,
They
WP.
did. You're correct. Listen,
At home,
here,
in front of Jerry.
you know what?
Oh, no.
You guys are right about everything you're saying. This is more of a gut feeling that I have that this could get ugly. Just
Okay.
this 1 week thing where the Cowboys would love to put it to us, and I don't know. I mean, I would like to think our motivation is going to be there with what you said. I have a hunch that this is not going to go the Eagles' way.
Keep in mind, since they've reinforced the defensive line, we've actually gone from one of the worst run defenses to one of the best rush defenses. So, in my mind, if Dallas can't run the ball with Pollard and Zeke, I think it's game over for them. I really do. I think this team is so deep on both sides of the ball, they could be without Jalen Hurts and still win the game.
Well, we're going to find out on Sunday.
And by the way, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, listen to me now. Run the football.
Agreed.
I think they got away from it from whatever reason. They thought they had the matchups that favored them against the Bears. I admit I didn't see much of the game. I was at the Nutcracker Ballet, so I didn't get to see much of it. But going back and looking at things,
What?
I did miss it.
You were at the where?
the Nutcracker Ballet. It's a Christmas tradition. in my family.
Okay. I mean,
Hey, I thought of any game I could miss, I thought I was going to walk out of there and it was going to be 48-10. So
well, that's true. Now,
you know,
by the way, to your other point, though, they still found a way to win, didn't they?
They did. I just wish Miles, with the season he's having, just give him the rock a little bit more, especially early in the game. They went the first 15 plays, looking back at the stat sheet, without running the ball.
Did you stay awake the whole time?
I did.
Really?
I did. I was helping my nephew understand it, so I was kind of answering his questions and going through things. So
better you than me. Although I am one for the symphony or maybe a good Broadway show.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do a ballet. But, hey, the Nutcracker's classic.
that one, at least I can follow. Now that my wife explained everything to me beforehand, I'm good.
So she explained it to you. You explained it to your nephew.
Yeah, we're passing it along.
On you go. Okay, it's time for some picks here, I believe, with these
Well,
games.
no, we got to get through the weather first. We got to talk about the forecast.
Oh, yeah, we do. Good.
And so, Thursday is one of these days. It's a transition day for areas like Texas. But keep in mind how windy it's going to be. And in fact, we're going to watch this in real time. So the front gets there midday Thursday in Fort Worth.
This, by the way, is the Baylor this is the Armed Forces Bowl, Baylor and Air Force. Okay,
right,
we're
correct.
back outside now for this one. Look at the temperature by Thursday night at this game.
And again, snow is possible there in North Texas.
Yeah.
On Thursday. Now, it should be pushing out by the time we get closer to game time, which is 7:30.
But look at the number.
Watch,
21. Yeah.
Watch this. You can see the wind field increase and come in behind the front. So
incredible.
Winds could be upwards of 30 miles per hour during the game. You want to go under Baylor.
And
score.
It's about a field goal spread.
Yeah, I would
I'm
go
telling
under.
you, these are ugly conditions. Now, how about Kansas City?
It gets worse.
For the Seahawks at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I think Pete Carroll's in for a nightmare here. I think he could be in some trouble. I really do.
I thought so at the beginning of the year. I'm not so sure now. I like Pete in this game.
14 degrees
Yeah.
against Andy Reid.
Look at the morning temperature.
It's unreal. I mean, single digits during the day.
Yep.
Feeling like the single digits thanks to the wind throughout the game. I mean, as much as I love Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he's built for this.
Well, and by the way, hinting at my pick a little bit, they've had some meltdowns defensively.
They have.
So I may like Pete slip and
they're
slide
in the
Emporium
playoffs.
here.
They are in the playoffs.
And that,
they clinched.
correct.
And they already clinched the division, too.
Seattle needs this.
Right. Well,
So-
I thought they needed it last week, too, and I'm
well-
the one that looks like a pirate right now.
Good point. Good point. It's all about situational things, too. But Foxborough, 28. Now, that's the high on Saturday.
That's the high. So,
Could they see some snow flurries?
I think so, just because, again, these bands could be quite long and quite strong. I think
yeah.
they're a little farther east.
Okay.
It's not a high probability, but still, temperatures below 32 degrees throughout the game. You can see those snow bands east of the lakes there in New York. And this is, just to get a little nerdy here, this is more of a wider scale model instead of a fine scale model. So
yeah, the high resolution stuff doesn't go out this far yet, so it's tough to tell. But there could be some snow showers around.
But look at the winds.
That's
this is where it gets ugly. I mean, good luck to both of these teams. The Bengals do like to throw the ball. They can run it too, but I think this is going to be, unfortunately, a forced tight game because of the weather.
Oh, 100%. And then we go to the Eagles-Cowboys. We don't really need the weather there. That's in Jerry World, of course.
Yep, that's a dome game. And
so we'll talk more about that.
The
Okay.
Vikings game is a dome game, too, so we didn't show the weather for that.
We didn't show the weather for that. Yep.
Anyone who tailgates in that is insane. It's going to be single digits in Minnesota.
And double-digit, maybe 20 below wind chill. Okay, here we go. You told me to take the under. I'm taking it.
Do it.
Because I can't. And I notice you don't really play a lot of over-unders, but Dan, this is the week, my friend.
I do agree. If I was going to do it with a game, I was going to do it with this one just because of the weather factor. And again, these are college kids dealing with this.
That may
not
be
the pros.
unmotivated anyway.
Right. And maybe, I've heard of nightmare scenarios where they don't get the heated benches in time. What if they're not prepared for this? God help them.
Yeah, it is going to be brutal. So I'm going to go under, even though, again, so I looked yesterday, it was 46.5. Love that number. Don't like it as much now. I'm still going to take it at 43.5, and you're going to go -4 for Baylor.
I'm going to go -4. I think Baylor finds a way to win. I think now they could be one of the predominant teams in the Big 12 as these changes take place. So watch out for them because I think they could be a recruiting force. I mean, without Texas being in the Big 12, all of a sudden they could rule Texas.
Yeah, you're right. Dave Aranda, great coach, too.
And he was sought after, and he's staying.
Yep. Seahawks, Chiefs, cold weather. I am taking Pete Carroll. I'm back on
I can't
the.
believe you're back on the Pete train.
Well, and here's the reason. The Chiefs disgusted me last week because they let me down in my best bets segment. Their defense has looked off lately, and I just think, given the cold weather scenario here. Plus, Dan, don't you? Well, clearly you don't because you're picking them, but. I look at that number. If this was like Chiefs -7 or -5.5, I'd like it. 9.5 is a big number to me.
It is a big number, but the Seahawks couldn't score against the 49ers in a must-win game at home. The weather's cruddy. Geno Smith is Geno Smith. I see the Chiefs rolling here. Now, again, what we don't know is how hard will the Chiefs want this game.
That's exactly right, and that's another reason.
It's hard to know.
I'm going to take a flyer on the Seahawks and say they can at least cover the 9.5. They may not win, but they can cover the 9.5. I think the Giants can win. I think the Vikings are hot and cold. I think they're in the playoffs. I think the Giants are going to be more motivated. I'm taking them in the money line upset.
I'm taking the Vikings only because of the talent cap. I still don't see the Giants being a threat to anyone. I don't see it.
I mean, you said it all year, and they are right in the thick of it.
They're right in the thick of it, but they're not great on defense. They're not great on offense.
Yeah.
They're just kind of a middling team.
Kind of there.
And they've won close games. Credit to them on that. But something just stinks with them.
Okay. Well, listen, you take the Vikings -3. Again, to me, that's a coin flip. I'm not going to argue with you. I don't hate any of your picks so far. The Bengals and the Patriots, I am, again, going to take the under here. I think the weather is that much of a factor. I think the game's going to stink. I think it's going to be fun to watch because of the weather. But it's a low number. I don't care. I'll take it, 39.5.
And I think the Patriots are dead and gone, as Nick Saban famously said. I think the Bengals could win, and I think they could win maybe by a touchdown. I think 3.5 is very attainable here. Okay,
good enough for me. The Eagles and the Cowboys, I hate to pick against the Birds, but again, I pick with my head, not with my heart. The situationally, that's how I try to pick these games. I think the Cowboys stun a lot of people and win pretty big here. Sorry.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be entertaining on Christmas Eve. I mean, obviously, the rivalry means so much to these players.
Yes.
They thrive on it. I think the defensive changes they've made. Could the Eagles win a game where the defense dominates? I think they can.
Okay.
I don't even know if they have to. The Eagles could put up 23, 24 points, something in that neighborhood, and I think win this game. And
well, but you didn't pick them to win. You picked them to cover.
I picked them to cover.
If you really had cojones, you would have picked the Eagles money line.
But you get on me about money lines, so I try not to pick too many of them. So
well, but when you're talking about a money line upset like this, if you really think the Eagles would win, go for it. I pick on you with the money line if the spread is like -1. But this is the Eagles. You really believe they're going to win this game. I can tell. So
I do.
Yeah,
and I think I have a counterpart in this, Mr. Shiner. Why don't you make your pick?
I would take them to win outright. I think with Minshew, even they cover. I don't think it's much more than a touchdown score, but I think he pulls it out because one, Dallas Goedert's back.
Yep.
That is breaking news, by the way. We just found that out before the podcast.
So that's a big thing. It's one more thing that the Cowboys have to cover on defense.
Yep.
And this Eagles defense has been averaging about 6 to 7 sacks a game in the last 4 or 5
so
here.
I believe there's a stat. If they have 4 defensive linemen with 10 sacks, it'll be the first time in NFL history, and it's within reach. And I think it'll be the first time in franchise history, and it could happen in this game, that they'd have 2 wide receivers break 1,000.
Yeah.
So over/under, does anyone think A.J.
Smitty's
Brown?
at 960 or something.
It's
He's real
right
close.
there. Does anyone think it's a shoo-in that A.J. Brown gets over 150 yards? I do.
I mean, it's hard. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, remember, he was a stud with Ryan Tannehill as quarterback.
Right.
So
The man's
why
unreal.
can't Minshew just throw the ball up there and let AJ take it down?
Total beast.
So
he's so impressive.
I don't know. I just still have faith as this team as a team, even though I think Jalen Hurts is the system.
Well,
now here's a question for you.
Maybe
guys.
right about that, but
if Jalen misses the next 3 games, which would kind of line up, if things, if you rest guys the last 2, maybe he doesn't play, maybe we get him 100%. Does he lose the MVP?
Possible, but
who would get it?
I think it goes back to Mahomes.
It goes back to Mahomes, or if Allen goes off these last 3 games and secures the #1 seed over KC, because you remember the Bills have beaten the Chiefs every time they've played. So
good points. That I think right now, I think he will get it, and I think he will play again this regular season.
I would love to see it.
Yeah.
I just can't believe we're even talking about an Eagles quarterback possibly being league MVP.
Yeah, outside of McNabb in '04,
Yep.
I mean, they really haven't had that
It's
opportunity.
unreal.
Good stuff, gentlemen. All right, it
You
is
ready?
time to go.
Under the radar.
All right, Mr. Brett Thacker, are you ready to go under the radar with this week's matchup? We are going back to the Jets, the Jets, Jets.
And we're going to Prime Video Thursday night, 8:15.
You love that Prime Video. You love Mr. Al Michaels.
They've had some interesting weather games. That's the deal. And Dr. Doppler will be there. Al will be at the MetLife Stadium, and this is a pick'em. It's a close game. It's an interesting game to bet on because both teams have shown some life this year.
They have.
The Jets still are in the playoff hunt. And quite frankly, I don't know who to pick here, but I will tell you the weather is going to be a factor. Let's get into it. Show us what's happening here because this is ugly.
So, one of the interesting things about this cold air system that's coming our way, it's a big area of high pressure coming in from the Arctic, but ahead of that is where we have the strong cold front, the Arctic front, and usually ahead of cold fronts, even this time of the year, we warm up. And so the weird part about this is Thursday is going to be a very wet day across the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and snow for interior New England. Now, for East Rutherford, that means temperatures near 50 degrees and likely periods of heavy rain. Now, let's show you how this plays out on Thursday itself. It looks like I did skip ahead there, but Thursday, I'm telling you, will be a heavy rain day. And so, what did I just hit? Hold on one second here, guys.
Technical difficulties. The pirate. He's hijacking his own ship.
My hook must have hit the end button. But what I was going to say is, you can be guaranteed temperatures in the upper 40s, a windy night for Thursday night football. And on top of all that, again, think about these teams. They don't play well on offense in regular weather. So I would probably think about taking the under in this.
And Dan, I have, again, we're going to get into that. Could you fix that up here for us? Well, you're doing that. I will tell you that it really hasn't been since the Rex Ryan era that we've seen this entertaining football from the Jets. And, they're not quite to that level, but they've been fun to watch at times. But this rainstorm is going to have a fact. It's going to be a factor. You're not going to have Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball out there.
1 to 2 inches of rain.
It's just going to be a deluge. It is going to be breezy. So I went ahead and did it. I took the under 38.5. Again, it's a low number. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because what I said in the column here is I said, is the over-under number almost too low? Well, can we beat Vegas on this one? Do I get cute and think the elements can be overcome and hope it's a high-scoring affair? No. I'm going to say I'll try it. I'm going to play the odds right here and go down with the ship. There's a pirate pun for you if I'm wrong. I mean, given the conditions, I'll take under 38.5.
I think it's a very good pick. I think the Jaguars, could they sneak into the playoffs? I mean, there's so many teams kind of sneaking
they're
around.
circling the drain there, but
Right.
you just don't know. But you're gonna take the Jags to go on the road and win.
I'm going to take the Jags to go on the road and win simply because we've seen this act from Doug Peterson teams before, whether they are near 500 or trying to achieve 500, they find a way into the playoffs. This could galvanize the team. I mean, that win in Dallas, let's not shake it. I mean, that was a big deal.
Yeah, it really was, and it shocked the league.
Yes.
Okay, time for my turn.
Time now for Brett's Best.
Well, Brett's best was Brett's worst last week with those Chiefs. Just the Texans, the lowly Texans. So this week again, this is one of those similar matchups that looks pretty easy to pick on paper. You've got just a flailing Packers team that they're not at home this week.
They're not.
They have to go to Miami.
Miami's also kind of flailing themselves.
They are, but they did. They dropped one against the Bills, and two has been a little off lately. I mentioned that in the column.
Those
here,
early hits in the season might be having an impact.
Yeah, his completion percentage isn't what it was. So where does that leave me here? Well, the Packers are another one of those teams. Technically, they're still in the hunt.
They are, very much so.
But the Dolphins should be able to eat here and torch this less than stellar defense at home. Because let's be honest, I think the Packers' defense is also a liability. We've picked on the receivers. We've picked on Rodgers. I think it's the Packers' defense that lets them down. And even though Miami hasn't played their best recently, listen, sometimes all it takes is getting back into the familiar confines, Hard Rock Stadium, and playing a team that, quite frankly, has a lot of issues.
Okay.
So I think I'll lay the points with the fish here.
Interesting. I have no faith in them right now. I think they're falling apart. I think they had a hot start to the season, and we all got on their bandwagon with all their offensive prowess, but I think they have questions on defense, and they can't score right now.
Well, you're right. Although they still put up what was it, 29 in a snowy Buffalo. So I think they can get this at home.
Okay, I am fearful the Packers are going to sneak into the playoffs, and I don't know if I want to see Aaron Rodgers against the Eagles right now in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, he's a guy that's always dangerous when you get that second season.
Correct.
So this is an interesting one. All right, time for dandies here.
It's Doppler Dandies.
Now I say that Aaron Rodgers is sneaky right now. How about those Lions?
They're not
Playing
going.
The best
They're not
football
going
of the
away.
season, and
Yep.
I thought Dan Campbell was a joke. Kind of the way I thought Nick Sirianni was when they hired him, just because all the rah and we're going to do this and we're going to put in the effort and we're going to make this happen. Listen, the Lions are showing everyone that game that they played against the Eagles, game 1 of the season, where they kept it close. I think the Lions are for real. They play defense. They are one of the top scoring offenses at home. Where they struggle is on the road. They're not great at scoring on the road. I think their point total per game is half on the road what they score at home. So
Yeah, now they're going to the Panthers.
And the Panthers are pretty lowly. I think this is another game. If Aaron Rodgers slips up here against the Dolphins, watch out, because I think the Lions could be in the playoffs, and it could knock out one of those Giants Commanders teams.
Playoffs?
Yeah, playoffs.
They are who we thought they were.
Well, maybe not in this case. We will see.
Yeah.
All right, let's cue up the final graphic.
Final picks.
You got a lot of text there, my friend. You're going some unders.
Well, and I wanted to make sure it was clear which games I'm going the under. But this is, I mean, I'm going the under in a lot of games because, again, Dan, this is exactly why we wanted to talk football and talk about our passion for the weather,
Yes.
too. This game with Baylor and Air Force looks cold and windy. I don't know if either team's going to be motivated. So
It's a bowl game. It does, kind of put into question what can be done here.
yeah, I'm going to take the under there. The Bengals and Patriots, that's going to be a cold and windy game. I'm going to take the under there. And then the Jaguars and Jets, rain, wind. You talk about just ugly.
I agree with you. I think all those games are going to be ugly. I was focusing more on the results. I think Baylor finds a way to get it done against Air Force. I think they cover the 4 points. You like Pete Carroll, which I'm still not sure why after what he's done to you this season.
Well, I'm going to give him one more chance.
Uh-huh.
But to go into Arrowhead and compete is going to be very tough. But I just look at that 9.5 and it spooks me.
Okay,
So,
all right. And then you like the Giants to win out. You picked them money line against the Vikings. I think the Vikings, as much as they seem to be pretenders to me, they're playing a pretender. You pick. I think the Vikings at home find a way to get it done.
Okay, that sounds good. Cowboys and Eagles, we're going to differ here. I don't like this situation. I think the Cowboys are going to do it. I think they're going to cover. I think they're going to win at home in front of Jerry Big and give him a big old Christmas gift.
All right. Well, let's go back to our friend Doug Peterson. Jaguars and Jets. That's our under the radar game. I think the Jaguars find a way to get it done. You're going the under, but you also seem to like the Jets.
No, I mean, the Jets, I think, are the better team here, but I don't know who's going to win this game. I don't know who's going to win, so
the
I'm
other
just going to
thing-
take the under and hope.
This is early in the week. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for the Jets. It seems like
Correct.
Zach Wilson is the likely starter, but, I mean, he's been pretty ineffective. for
Back and
them.
forth we go.
Right. Back and forth we go. Hard to know.
Yeah.
And then your game, you're picking the Dolphins.
I am, and now you've made me nervous that I picked it. I love your intimidation skills, especially in a pirate hat. But I think the Dolphins are still the better team. I think they're going to win at home, and I will take this. See, the 5.5 number that doesn't scare me. I like that. I think they can win by a touchdown. The Packers' defense stinks.
Okay. All right. I'm ready for it. And then,
And then
I'm picking the Lions.
You are going to pick them.
I'm
Okay.
picking them, and I think they may sneak into the playoffs, which, again, the Eagles played that tight game in the beginning, and everyone thought the sky was falling, and now look where those two teams are.
Pretty incredible stuff. Well, listen, you know where to find us by now. We're going to see how this all plays out as we move into next week. But look us up and send us your side bets at weatherwagers@gmail.com. You could follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Dana's going to get back on his ship. We thank Mr. Shiner, as always, for running our audio for us and being a part of this. And next week, Dan, you and I are going to be on a bit of a holiday break. We're going to try to do an episode from our remote locations next week, and we will see how it goes. But we are going to be with you.
We are going to be with you. We're going to find a way, and I'm excited because that means we'll be another day closer to the Rose Bowl. We'll be another day closer to finally getting into the NFL playoffs, this longer season. So there's still a lot of football to go, my friend.
Oh, 100% there is, and we are excited. We couldn't be closer in our pick'em, so our
It's coming
records
down
are
to the
close.
wire.
Here we go. We hope everybody has a great Christmas. Bundle up and stay warm, everybody.